Hello everyone, my name is Dominic Castor and my topic is about transitional justice. So what is transitional justice? Well, transitional justice is essentially an idea or a framework that aims to address human rights violations and injustices and as well any possible atrocities that may have occurred in a society. Typically, these societies are transitioning from conflict or oppression to a state of peace and stability. It encompasses various mechanisms like truth commissions, prosecutions, reparations, institutional reforms, and court hearings. With transitional justice, we as a society must utilize this in order to seek proper healing and ensure that victims are given fair justice for the acts committed. Most importantly, we as peace builders, we must ensure that everyone must be heard and that every party is considered when making a decision, and that is when transitional justice makes its play. Transitional justice is very relevant, especially in peace building efforts, because it's the bridge between damaged past and a healing future. We must recognize that a very important step in healing and recognizing is what has been done and what should be done moving forward. Closure is a way of healing, and transitional justice makes a very good deal at restoring the dignity of victims while holding prosecutors accountable when in some cases they don't. Also, and most importantly, it builds peace across all affected parties and ensures a medium between conflict when at the end of it all we can find a balance and seek proper resolutions, and that is what we, peace builders, ultimately aim to fulfill. And so during my research on the subject, I found very interesting cases, one of which that still sticks out to me is the Moiwana versus Suriname case. This case exemplifies the struggle for justice and reconciliation, highlighting the pain and resilience of a community seeking acknowledgement and closure. The Moiwana versus Suriname case was a massacre of a village in Suriname by the Surinamese government military, resulting in many innocent lives lost. This injustice was not completely resolved as it took many years of legal fighting against the Surinamese government to compensate the victims lost, and surprisingly only found to give each of the victims roughly $130,000. Having said this, there is no amount that can save the lost lives, and this case is very important because it signifies the importance of providing a proper, well-deserved justice to victims, that of which was not achieved and was just merely compensated by monetary means. And so you can see as to why this case is quite significant. Many more years it took for proper reconciliation and symbolic remembrance of the victims, but all the more it took the Moiwana community many exhaustive efforts to heal by the events. At the end, Moiwana did lose many innocent lives, however through the victims that spoke up against about their experiences, brought light to the pain they had to battle, and the fight of needing proper transitional justice. And so the impacts that transitional justice could have locally and globally made are very important. As you took from the Moiwana case, this is evidently because everyone needs a voice and is about providing a voice to the voiceless, ensuring that everyone, regardless of background, has their story heard and validated. Yes, the Moiwana people could have quote unquote healed given the sum of money provided. However, they believed that it was not appropriate that the lives lost would just be covered by money, and so they believed that it was their right to fight for their voice and ensure that even the voices that were lost by the massacre still had an impact to the decision in making in legal battles. This in turn can become a global impact as many courts, corporations, and governments could learn from this and continue to utilize public voices and victim experiences as a means of determining proper reparations and justice. So, what struck me most was just the lack of voice for many individuals affected by conflicts. Their narratives were sidelined or overshadowed by political agendas or power dynamics, and even despite exhausted efforts, there always felt like someone was lacking a voice in conflict. And in my time learning about the subject, I realized that this phenomenon, while mostly social, really just stems conversational battlegrounds not only for physical struggles but also for the control of narratives. During my research and what I talked about in my paper, those with power often wield influence over the portrayal of events, and they kind of steer attention towards narratives that mostly align with their agendas. while sidelining or overshadowing the diverse and often conflicting individual experiences. Additionally, the limited access of marginalized groups to platforms where their voices can be heard enhances this imbalance. And as an unfortunate result, the true human suffering and diverse experiences within conflicts can oftentimes remain obscured and or quote unquote drowned by the louder, more dominant narratives that is propagated by those in positions of influence. Advocate for peace means to always listen, and so it is very difficult to do so because the challenges were just so evident. There's a pattern of people not being heard or given the platform they deserve. To advocate for peace means perpetually listening, yet this is incredibly difficult due to systematic barriers and constant biases. So during my research, I actually did feel at some point that not having a platform kind of meant not being heard, and that was simply because of the overlapping biases and demand for popular and much more demanding narratives to fit a better picture, and that obviously should never be the case. Unfortunately, for medias and news headlines, there just comes a time, especially our time, where the need for attention and more popularity is looked at more than the real cause and real need for proper reparation. So, what I would have done differently is I definitely would have tried a different, more active approach than researching. Of course, writing a paper made me feel more knowledgeable in the subject. However, I do feel that as a peace builder, it is my part to actively give or apply actions within my community and do things locally that would promote transitional justice. Because this means actively engaging in initiatives and activities at the local level that fosters reconciliation, bridge divides, and facilitate healing processes. For instance, I definitely should have engaged with my community. Say I could have initiated in group forums and discussions and find research more actively engaging with possible victims, perpetrators, and local organizations, or even people who are just more knowledgeable than me in the subject. Or I could have also worked with a victim support program and collaborate at providing assistance and support to victims of past conflicts and injustices, including things such as counseling services, access to justice, or economic empowerment programs. So there's actually an active group in Calgary called VAST, I believe it's like Victim Assist Support Team, that does what I said. So like they do include things such as counseling services to those afflicted by um, conflicts. And so I could have definitely been a part of that, tried volunteering, or at least asked those a part of it for some direct insight to the whole process. And so everyone deserves a voice, and my project has reinforced this fundamental truth. The message I wanted to convey is that each of us can contribute to transitional justice by actively participating in conversations, supporting marginalized voices, advocating for policy changes, and fostering inclusive communities. We can collectively pave the way for a more and just, peaceful society, one conversation at a time. Being able to hear others out and utilize their experiences as a means of connecting is very important. But all the more should we be more open in our conversations, so when conversations become fragile and delicate, we as peace builders can understand how to build upon such and move forward with those who need healing. We as peace builders should definitely be at the forefront of the healing. So that's my presentation, and thank you for hearing this.